Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us again. I am Aleasha Bahr, and this is the Introverted Entrepreneur Success Stories. I'm a sales coach for introverts, and I create sales processes personalized to your personality, service, and audience that allow you to enroll over 50% of the people you're talking to without pain pitching or pretending to be someone else, which I promise is a lot easier to do when you have something that's custom to you. The idea for this show came from people like you who have the desire to be an entrepreneur, but might let being an introvert hold you back or make you think you're not cut out for it. So we decided it could be helpful to interview other introverted entrepreneurs about their journey, success, and how they feel about sales. Because we found that sales is an unavoidable part of entrepreneurship and often the reason that introverts shy away from it. So joining us on the show today is Mary Nunaley.
Hello, and thanks for having me, Aleasha. Excited to be here.
So excited to have you. Mary Nunaley is an ATD certified master instructional designer and award-winning course developer. Along with her son, Amadeus, she started the Lavender Dragon team to help small and medium businesses bring their online courses to life by creating engaging and interactive courses that are effective and fun. Mary brings a sense of playfulness and passion to everything she does and is always asking, why is this happening and how can we improve it? This comes through in the work she does with her clients and the impact they're able to make on their audiences. When she's not creating courses, you can usually find her crocheting, reading, or every summer leading her team of intrepid Gishers. Gishers?
Gishers.
Okay, what do the Gishers do? I gotta ask.
Okay, so Gish is the greatest international scavenger hunt. I think it's going on its 11th year, and it is a global scavenger hunt that takes place the last week of July, first week of August every year. And we have teams of about 15 people scattered around the world that compete in this crazy scavenger hunt.
Do you have to fly to different cities to?
Oh, no. Everybody, it's like as a team leader, I try to make sure that I have folks in different parts of the world. And we realize that in 1 week, there's no way we're going to get all 200 plus items done. And so sometimes we go for quality over quantity. And our goal is to some year make it into the yearbook.
Okay, that's so interesting. Very I didn't know that was a thing. And I can imagine why that is so interesting to do.
Yes. And it's mostly a lot of introverted nerds that participate.
I could see that with a scavenger hunt. Yeah. You're like, let's work together to solve the puzzle.
Exactly.
Okay. So before starting a business, did you think that being an introvert would be an asset or not?
I really did not. And I did not put a ton of thought into starting a business, if truth be told. Okay. I had planned to leave. I was leaving my corporate job and had just planned to freelance and pick up gigs. And then my son came home from work one day and said, I quit my job. I want to join the family business. So now you have two introverts, one who is a college dropout, going, okay, we're going to have to figure out a way to pay off your student loans and pay the bills. And so it's been quite an interesting road that we've journeyed.
So what did you do before?
So prior to starting my own business, this is my third or fourth career, I don't even know. But the most recent thing I did was I led a team of instructional designers at a technology company, building training for employees.
Okay. So this segued very well into your own business, what you're doing now.
It did. Yes.
Yeah. And did you quit your job? Did you want to be an entrepreneur? How did it?
I made the decision that it was a toxic workplace for me and it was time for me to go. And so I thought, I'm not getting any younger. And if I'm going to start my own business, I've always had an entrepreneurial mindset. What better time than now? So I kind of, packed up my toys and said, okay, I'm starting my own business. I have no clue what I'm doing.
Yeah. So when you say entrepreneurial mindset, I think this is really helpful to people to understand, what did that look like? What do you mean when you say that?
Sure. So my first career was in the hotel, restaurant, food and beverage industry. And as a restaurant manager at large hotels, we were responsible for marketing our own hotels, making sure that like we were competing for the guests that stayed in the hotel, their business, because it's a set group of people. And so very early on, I learned like how to run promotions, how to, make my restaurant look more appealing than my friend's restaurant in the same hotel. And so I got a lot of training that way. But as the department head, I didn't necessarily have to be the one putting myself out there. Like I could have my team and my employees interacting with the guest. I was just sort of sitting behind the stage, coming up with the creative ideas. Let's try this. But I wasn't having to do a lot of that, like talking to people.
So you were innovative, and that made you
I
think
was
you had an
definitely innovative and willing to try ideas, but I wasn't necessarily the one out there, like shaking everybody's hand and saying, come on into the restaurant, come eat with us, that type of thing.
which is fine. You don't have to be that person. But when you say entrepreneurial mindset, so for a lot of people who don't know if they're cut out for it or not, a lot
Mhm.
of times I associate an entrepreneurial mindset as somebody who's like, I can't deal with all this mediocrity. Like everyone around me is just like totally okay with doing a very subpar job. And when
Mhm.
I try to do a good job, they think I'm annoying.
Yes, well,
And
and I've gotten that reputation,
yeah,
in most of the
every
corporate
entrepreneur
jobs
I know has, every
that I
one of
got.
them.
It's just like, why are you going the extra mile? It's like, well, why not? I mean, well, it doesn't matter. I worked in higher ed for many years, and it's like, well, you're not going to get a raise if you go extra. I'm like, that doesn't matter. I know that I'm not doing my best work, and I just can't do that. And I've always had a little bit of a rebellious streak as well. So I think that to me is part of that entrepreneur mindset as well. It's like, okay, be willing to take a risk, do something a little different. When I was a kid, I used to be the one in the neighborhood that organized our Jerry Lewis muscular dystrophy telethon carnivals with my
Wow.
siblings and my neighbors and stuff. So,
Wonderful.
I've always had that kind of like, oh, let's go out and do something weird.
Yeah. Like you were outside the lines, or people thought that, always said you were different or whatever. Most entrepreneurs are, if they were employed, they were high performing, difficult employees.
Yes. Yes.
Uh,
That's a great way of summing it up.
yeah. So we always got, told to kind of like step down and like stop trying to make things better,
Yes.
basically.
Color in the lines instead of outside of them.
Yes, yes. So if that resonates with any of you guys, sounds like Mary had to deal with that for how many years in corporate before you left?
Oh, goodness gracious. I mean, if you look at my whole career, probably 30 plus.
Yeah. So 30 plus years of being told that. I mean, it's just so frustrating. I dealt with it for about 10 years and then was
Mhm.
like, okay, clearly I'm just not going to fit in at
Right.
any company.
Exactly.
So I will just go do my own thing where I have total control over the product and I can make sure that it is, something I'm proud of. Um, and only employ people who feel the same way.
Yes.
So if you're wondering if you're cut out for it, if you've heard those things or you feel that, you're probably perfect for being an entrepreneur. And also I think that, you were probably making good money in that last
Yes.
career, but
Definitely.
it wasn't enough, right? So, I mean, I've made really good money too, but I don't know. Entrepreneurs, it's not enough. You want to be fulfilled and make a lot of, why do I have to trade one for the other?
Right. And I think the other part of it is just because you're making a lot of money, if you don't have the time to spend it, if you get, if you're constantly sick, if you're grumpy all the time and your family doesn't want to be around you, it doesn't matter how much money you make because you're just not a happy human. And I found that the first couple of years as an entrepreneur, I certainly wasn't making anywhere close to what I was making in my last position, but I was a lot happier. And even if I was putting in more hours, it was because it was something I was passionate about and it was mine. It wasn't like I was doing it for somebody else. It's like this business is going to succeed because we put in our blood, sweat, and tears, and we're going to make this happen, and it's paying off.
Yeah. So, I mean, the person who's willing to do like, you're not an entrepreneur if you're like, I'd probably rather just play it safe. Like
Right.
I can deal with all of these things that I don't like because I'm making money that comes in every month or whatever.
Exactly.
So yeah, the entrepreneur is the only one I know who has like the audacity to say, I will not settle. I
Right.
want it all. I want it all and I can have it all. And then you make it all.
Yeah. And I mean, I've had so many friends and former colleagues go, but the risk, and it's like that to me is less stressful, the risk of having it all on my own shoulders than working somewhere where I don't feel fulfilled or where I feel like I'm not making a difference. It's like, so for me, I'm not risk adverse in that sense. I'm risk adverse in other areas like sales, but I'm not risk adverse in having my own business.
Yeah. So being like, that feeling that it eats at your soul to think that you're just gonna be at this corporate environment for the rest of your life where you're constantly like having your flame dulled
Yes,
and
exactly.
stamped out. So you're like, I just can't do it.
Yeah, it's like
And
it's time.
not to say it's not scary to start your business and it's not work, but I mean, the thing that always motivated me to keep going was like the thought of having to go back to
Yes.
being an employee. It scared the hell out of me. Like it lit a fire under my ass to do whatever I needed to do to get.
Exactly it. It's just like, no, I can't go back to that hour-long commute and my time is not my own. It's just like I like being able to work when I want and wear what I want and show up when I want. I mean, obviously I have to show up for my clients, but there's just such a big difference between that and it's like, no, no, I don't want an hour drive anymore. I want to stay close to home and
Well, and the whole playing the game, right? Playing the office
yes.
politics game. Like I was always really bad at it. I was just like, I just want to get a good job done. I don't know who's trying to posture themselves. I'm not trying to posture
Yes.
myself, PS. And they were like, ooh,
Exactly.
fresh meat. She'll
Yes,
be
or it's
easy
like,
to ruin.
oh, these people said, oh yeah, we love you. You're a great manager. We did it. And then you like turn around and it's like, oh, well, so and so. I'm like, but wait, we just had a meeting and they said that they thought I was one of their best bosses. And then, I find out that they absolutely hate me. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, it's emotionally exhausting, which you
It
don't have.
is.
Well, I guess there's some emotional exhaustion being an entrepreneur, but it's not the same at all. It's really mastering your own mindset of doubt. Like you're just,
Yes.
yeah, that's the emotional journey of
It's
an
it's a very
entrepreneur.
different set of emotions, I think. It's like when I work for corporate, I knew that I was going to, consistent paycheck. I knew exactly what it was going to be each month. As an entrepreneur, there are some months when it's like, oh, I wonder if any money's coming in this month because the client might be late paying or something like that. Versus, okay, every month I'm taking home X number of dollars and now it's, okay, we're pretty consistent. Oh, that contract ended. Where am I going to find another person to, work with? So there is that, and I think that goes to the risk part. It's like I'm willing to live with that kind of risk.
Well, you get good also at money management. You have saving.
Yes.
So you're not going to be living paycheck to paycheck as an entrepreneur.
No.
Um, or that will just, be too much stress.
Yes.
Um, so you have good months and then you kind of save them out. And then as you grow and scale, things become more predictable.
Exactly. But just for anybody thinking about it, just at least in my experience, those first couple years were just like, whoa, talk about a roller coaster.
Yeah,
And
totally.
now it's starting to stable out. And of course, with the pandemic, it was a real roller coaster, especially because most of our clients at the time were in the restaurant related industries. And of course,
Oh, they
that was
closed.
just a rough time for the whole food and beverage industry. And they're not thinking about, oh, yes, we need employee training. They're focused on how are we going to pay our bills and keep our doors open. And so it
Yeah.
was, a couple of really rough months there. But again, we had savings, we had a plan B. We were able to go out and say, okay, here's a good lesson. Don't put all your eggs in one industry, even though a lot of folks say you should find your niche.
Yeah.
But my niche is course creation,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have to be a specific industry because the skills in building a course apply regardless of what industry. And so I followed the find your niche, stick with it, stick what's good. So mine was all food and beverage. And it's like, no, we're not doing that again.
Yeah, I work with people on this quite a bit because they do feel so much pressure to niche down. And a lot of times people think that it has to be by industry, or it has to be by like age or career, or like a certain title, or something of somebody that they serve. But it can actually just be like a certain type of person. Like you can
Mhm.
niche down to introverts.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah. Or you can just niche down to people. I mean, honestly, course creation is a niche. Like, do you want to put out information online and make money from it? That's a
Mhm.
niche.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like the fundamentals of lesson design apply no matter what information you're teaching, right?
Right.
It's the
And
same.
and that's where some people have a hard time with that. And it's like, no, no. The fundamentals of how you build a course apply across the board. You're the subject matter expert. My job and my team's job is to get that information from you and turn it into something that somebody else could understand.
Yeah. And the way people learn, you
Hmm.
have like, there are multiple ways, audio, visual, tactile, all
Right.
that. But you have the fundamentals to make sure that no matter what type of learner they are, there's an option for them. So that doesn't really change regardless of the information.
Exactly. Right. I don't have
Yeah.
to be an expert at sales to help somebody build a sales course.
Yeah. And you don't have to format it any differently, really, than you
Right.
would format a training for food and beverage employees.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
yes,
And
it would be
and
formatted this.
yeah, and it's a lot of fun because I get to learn a lot about a whole bunch of things.
That is so fun. Okay, so you were scared, but you were like, I can't take this
Yes.
anymore. It's been 30 plus years. I'm over it. And so I'm going to figure it out no matter what that looks like. And were you scared of sales?
Oh, big time. I still am somewhat. I'm getting better because I know that
Yeah.
without sales, I'm not going to have a business. Um, but when we first started, I was just putting my portfolio up on sites like Upwork and places that people go to look for course creators, and then realized that that really wasn't a sustainable model for us to grow a business, but it was a good way to get started.
Yeah.
But I still struggle with, like, I'll have great conversations with clients and then I always forget to ask that important question. Like, what's your budget and would you like to work with us? I'm like, great,
Yeah.
this is a wonderful conversation. See ya.
Yeah, that happens all the time. And is it because I mean, it's just very normal to feel weird asking that question.
Yes.
Um,
It's very weird
but you
asking somebody for money, and I don't ever want to come across as a sleazy salesperson. So I'll
you will never, that's one thing that introverts don't have to worry about, is they'll never come across like that. If anything, you'll just come across probably like not super confident, because it's not that you're not confident in what you're selling, it's that you're not confident in asking. You're so worried about being salesy that you end up underselling
yes.
accidentally. Yeah, is usually what happens with
I was going to say,
introverts.
I've been told by many former clients that that's exactly my problem. It's just like, yeah, because you like undersold. I'm like, oh, but it pays the bills. So yeah, that selling as an introvert is very, very difficult. And it's learning, even 5 years into the business, we're still learning, how do you sell and how do you close the sale? And I have
Well,
great
it's
conversations.
Yeah. So if you have great conversations and you have that trust built, and it's very easy to transition to like, what's your timeline for doing this?
Hmm.
Like, when are we, when did you want to get started? Like, what's your goal for this? And like back it out, reverse engineer. Okay, so you probably need it launched by whatever time. That means we need this much time to build out, is that realistic for you? It becomes like discussing a detail, just like anything. Like someone's like, oh, what restaurant do you recommend? And you're like, well, what kind of food do you want? Where are you staying? And what's your budget? It's like very
Right.
just part of the information to gather. So it sounds like you've got half of it totally dialed in. Um, great conversation part. And is there any way that you've like, what have you done that's helped you with? What have you tried that's made a difference for you in sales?
I guess there's no like set formula of things that I've tried. I've read some books, um, worked with a couple of sales coaches and found that their style was just totally not mine. My son and
Oh
I both
no.
walked away going, okay, that might work if you're selling, $100,000 widgets to somebody, but our business isn't like selling, $100,000 semi trucks. Where it's more of a one-to-one personal kind of
Yeah.
business. And so that approach of like, hey, cold call everybody that has this
Oh
thing.
God.
And I'm like, it was like, no, run away, run away. We just can't do
Yeah.
that. So what I found more is like what doesn't feel good, but I'm still trying to find what works, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's great that you were trusting your intuition that this didn't feel good because a lot of people will be like, well, I'm not an expert. I don't know. I guess I have to do what this person told me to do anyway. And then it doesn't work for them because it's not fit to their service or their audience or their personality. And they end up like wasting a lot of time and becoming so discouraged usually. So I love that you like listen to your intuition. We're like, no, it's a hard pass. I'm not going to be persuaded into doing that.
Right. Yeah. And, I guess that's part of where that rebellious part comes in because, again, it's like, okay, but I'm paying money for a coach. And yet I'm standing up to this coach saying, it's not working for me. How can we end this relationship? Because it started out well, but as we got into it, it just isn't fitting for us. So I think that's, it's a lot of throwing darts at the dartboard and hoping something sticks right now. It's like, let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try this.
Yeah, that is entrepreneurship. And it's not judging the things that don't work. It's just treating them as lessons,
Oh,
right?
that's a good way to, yes.
Yeah. Like, okay, that didn't work. It's okay. What did we learn from it? And like moving on.
Yeah, like, okay, well, we learned that cold calling people is not a strength of the two of us as introverts. It's
Oh my
not going to
gosh.
happen.
Cold calling is awful for almost anyone. There are so few people that like that. I mean, when I meet someone who likes cold calling, I'm like, you are a unicorn. And I hope that you charge a lot of money for this skill and talent that you have and enjoy because
Well, that's good to
nobody
hear because
likes it.
I just felt like I'm such a failure. I can't cold call, and I'm just like,
Oh my God.
even if if you call my phone, the message on it says, I'm not going to listen to the voicemail or answer. Send me a text if you want a response, which many people have said that's a true introvert kind of message anyway.
Well, I love how like solid you are in yourself. You're like, this is how, and this is something that we've learned a lot from other guests too, is just like really that certainty in knowing what works for you and not feeling bad about it.
Yeah,
There's no reason to feel bad about it. It's just like, hey, take your shoes off at the door. That's my kind of house.
exactly. And
Like,
and yeah, and my thinking is, and you are definitely more of an expert in this realm than me, but part of it is if you don't like the message on my phone that says send me a text or something, you're probably not my ideal client to begin with because that's just the way I am. And I'm not going to be the right fit for everybody, but it's like, hey, if you don't get my sense of humor and my personality right now, it's probably going to be a painful working relationship.
yeah. So that is a lesson that most people need to learn after making the mistake a few times. Did you take on a couple clients that were not a fit to begin with, or did
Oh,
you just know?
yes. No, and it
Okay.
was painful and it was like, what have we done to ourselves and
Yeah.
why? But it was that fear of like, I don't have any money coming in and that gut instinct is going, this is going to be a bad fit. And then the checkbook's going, but we need money. And so what I have learned is that it's better to listen to the gut sometimes than the checkbook.
Absolutely. I work with people on this all the time because you fall into this trap of some money is better than no money. Um,
Yes,
but actually, when you are spending time and energy on the some money that's not a fit, it's totally taking away your time and attention from the high paying quality clients. And that might sound like a fairy tale or like a nice cliche, but I've seen it played out so many times that when you let go of that difficult client, you have room, space, and energy for the right client. Has that been your experience?
that has been our experience, especially the longer we're in business. It's more of a, wow, this should have been a 4-hour job. and it's turning into a 15-hour job. And so now that's like 10 hours I can't devote to another client or another project. And so in the long run, it ends up costing us more money than we actually made.
Yeah. Because somebody's just difficult.
Yeah, or we were not very clear in our expectations of what we need from them to do our job and what they will get from us. And so, that was a hard lesson to learn too, about how to be clearer in communicating with the clients what they can expect from their relationship with us. And so there are times when we just sort of ate it, because when we looked back, it's like, oh, well, it made sense to us, but clearly it didn't make sense to them. So we've refined our intake and our processes.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely, were the reason you maybe weren't clear about expectations and stuff, were you worried that it would bother them?
I was very much,
Yeah.
because that's one of that introvert. I think it's one of those introvert things though too. It's like, what are they going to think of me? And is it? Yeah, it
Well,
was.
people pleasing. We're very focused on the other person's experience. That's why
Yes.
conversation with introverts is usually really enjoyable for somebody, because we are so focused and in tune with, like, is this person getting value out of it? Am I offending them? Are they having a good time? And so that can kind of play into, like, I want them to enjoy the project and feel like they got value out of it, and da 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 da. And then it's at your
Yes.
expense.
Yes. You just summed it up perfectly. That's exactly what we experienced.
Yeah. So once you've done it, if you can, listeners, and I've never seen anyone be able to do this from the beginning, but if you can, just say no to someone who's not a good fit, and don't feel bad laying out the expectations very clearly, because they will appreciate the transparency always.
Yes.
The
And it's
client
not
will say, like,
easy.
oh, thank you. Like, I'm glad we're all on the same page. This is what it's not going to include. This is what it is going to include. I'm okay with that. Let's move forward. It just makes everybody feel good.
It really does, but it's so hard to do.
Well, have you found that it's easier when you see the client say, like, okay, yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, because there are things that I'll like stress over, and then it's like I'll have 3 or 4 other people read it before I send it off to the client. And the client's like, okay, yeah, where do I sign? I'm like, I spent all that time worrying about that, and you're just like, yeah, I'll sign, no problem. And so that's a hard part though, just like the asking for the money. It's like, so I am getting better about taking a deposit and then setting milestones, but asking for money is a really hard thing to do.
Okay. I want to
She's
help
like,
you
uh-oh,
so
uh-oh.
badly. Because I know that feeling, but it's just a mindset shift around it, really, because it's for the other person as much as you. And that usually helps introverts, is to realize that it's not a selfish thing. It's for the other person's benefit to talk about the money and the sales and stuff, because when everything isn't upfront, they're upset.
Right.
So they feel better knowing all of the elements, and, like, when they've got skin in the game, they'll show up at a different level than if they don't have any skin in the game. So yeah, I had a marketing agency for a long time, and I would bill half up front and half at the end.
Hmm.
So there was like I'm about to do a bunch of work. Like, I need you to send me a bunch of assets in order to do that work. And
Right.
you're going to be more likely to send it to me if you've already given me some money.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Yes. And that's what we have started doing. And it took us a long time to learn that lesson. That's like, here's a deposit so that we can get work started. And
Yeah.
then depending on the length of the project and the cost of the project, sometimes it'll be, a deposit and then the balance at the end of the project. If it's something longer, like a 9 or 10 month type thing, then there'll be milestones built in, because I've got to pay
Wonderful.
voice talent, and I've got to pay videographers, and I've got to pay other people. So it's really just so that they get paid.
Absolutely. So, I mean, these are great lessons learned as an introvert in business, figuring out, like, what works for you and feels good to you too, like works financially
Yes.
and business wise, but also, resonates with you, which is such a big part of being an introvert in sales. I mean, anyone in sales is listening to your intuition and following it, but introverts especially. have a way of doing things at their expense a lot.
I would agree. And I would say my introverted entrepreneurial friends fall into that same thing. I don't know if it's imposter syndrome or just because we're introverts, we don't feel
Worthy.
that's the word. Yes. We don't feel like we're worthy, even though we know we're good at what we do. It's like I
So
can
good.
look at my resume and my bio and the things I've done, and I'm still just like, I have to ask you for money now. I didn't want to do that.
It's so funny because you are so good at what you do. I know it. You do a kick-ass job. Like when you are on the job, you're like, I'm going to give 150% of myself to make sure that this is amazing.
Right.
But in that sales process, somehow it's like, you're not communicating that piece of it.
Yeah, no, it is. It's like I can go talking and give you ideas and walk away. And then it comes to that like seal the deal thing. And then all of a sudden I become this like, okay, this is the hard part now. I have to ask you for some money, but you don't have to pay me if you don't want to. It's
Actually,
okay.
I'll do it for free.
Yeah,
It's cool.
exactly. I'll just do it for free. It's okay. And they're just like, "Ooh, we got the sucker here." So,
Yeah.
it's how do you learn? And that's what I'm still learning is how to get past that.
Yeah. Because if you do that, you'll always end up being resentful and
Yes.
not showing up as fully on the project.
Right. And that's the other piece of it. It's like, well, if I was getting paid for it, then I'd be like, okay, I have to do a good job because they're paying me versus, okay, sure, I'll just do it for you. And then it's like, yeah, I'll push you to the bottom of the barrel. Well, where is it? Well, you're not paying me anyway, so I don't really have to
And
give
they're
you
like, but you
100%.
off, they're like, you
That's
offered.
it. But you
Yeah.
offered to do that. So it's like, I put
Yeah.
myself in this situation.
That is such a like great example of the mental struggle. A lot of times it happens behind the scenes of entrepreneurship, especially in the beginning. So I love and appreciate how authentic you're being here, Mary. And I hope everybody can feel understood and seen and like they're not alone and that this is something that they can be very successful at despite all of these things and actually their benefits, because in the end, you do such an incredible job for your clients. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming, Mary. Can you tell everybody how to find you?
Oh, sure. So, Aleasha, if anybody's looking for me, you can find me at thelavenderdragonteam.com, which is our website, or Mary Nunaley on LinkedIn or Facebook. So I kind of bop around the socials as well.
Amazing. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming in and giving us a real picture of what it looks like to be an introvert in business. And everybody else, thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye.